Every day you make hundreds of decisions, from what to eat for breakfast to which person to trust, what career move to make, and how to spend your money. You probably think those choices are logical, rational, and entirely your own, but the truth is your brain plays tricks on you, constantly. Hidden beneath every thought is a network of shortcuts, distortions, and emotional filters that shape the way you see the world. These are called cognitive biases, and they quietly influence everything you do. They color your perception, guide your judgments, and even determine your happiness, all without you realizing it. The scary part? They don't just affect bad decisions, they also make you feel right even when you're wrong. Let's dive into 8 powerful cognitive biases that shape your life more than you know. And once you recognize them, you'll start to see how your mind can both protect and deceive you. Confirmation bias, seeing only what you want to see. Confirmation bias is one of the most dangerous mental traps. It makes you believe you're right even when you're completely wrong. Your brain naturally seeks information that confirms what you already believe and ignores anything that challenges it. If you think someone dislikes you, you'll notice every small sign that supports that belief and overlook the moments that disprove it. If you believe a certain diet works, you'll focus on stories that validate your view and reject evidence that contradicts it. This bias creates an echo chamber inside your mind, where your existing opinions grow stronger and alternative perspectives fade away. It's comforting because it protects your ego, but it's deadly for growth. The truth doesn't always align with what feels familiar. Future success, wisdom, and emotional intelligence begin the moment you challenge your own assumptions. When you ask, "What if I'm wrong?" instead of searching for proof that you're right. 2. Anchoring bias. The first number controls. Anchoring bias happens when your brain clings to the first piece of information it receives and uses it as a reference point for all future decisions. It's why a 50% off sale feels like a great deal, even if the original price was inflated. It's why you judge someone's performance based on your first impression of them, even if they later prove you wrong. The first number, idea, or piece of data you encounter becomes the anchor, and your brain compares everything else to it. This bias manipulates your judgment in ways you don't realize. In negotiations, whoever names a price first often controls the entire discussion. In relationships, your first experience with someone can define how you perceive them for years. Anchoring bias limits your flexibility and makes you resistant to new perspectives. The only way to escape it is to pause, detach, and ask yourself, am I judging this based on reality or based on the first thing I heard? 3. Availability heuristic. What's easy to remember feels true. Your brain loves shortcuts, and one of its favorite is the availability heuristic, the tendency to overestimate the importance of information that's easiest to recall. If you recently saw a news story about a plane crash, you might suddenly feel like flying is dangerous, even though statistically, it's safer than driving. If you hear about a few bad relationships, you might start believing love never works out. The easier something is to remember, the more real it feels, regardless of the facts. This bias plays with your perception of risk, probability, and truth. It makes you think the world is more dangerous, more negative, or more hopeless than it really is, simply because bad news sticks in your memory longer. The human mind is wired to pay attention to emotion, and fear is one of the strongest emotions there is. To think clearly, you must separate what's memorable from what's accurate. Just because you can recall it easily doesn't mean it's true. The halo effect, when one good thing blinds you. The halo effect is your mind's tendency to let one positive impression influence how you judge everything else about a person or situation. When you meet someone attractive, successful, or confident, you might automatically assume they're kind, intelligent, or trustworthy, even if you have no evidence of that. The same thing happens with brands, celebrities, and even friends. One shining trait creates a halo that blinds you to flaws. This bias works in reverse too. If someone makes a bad first impression, your brain might label them negatively in every area. The halo effect explains why charismatic people often rise faster in careers and relationships. Perception becomes reality. It's not fair, but it's human nature. This bias reminds us that our minds are emotional storytellers, not objective judges. To see clearly, you must learn to separate one good quality from the whole picture. Admiration should never replace analysis. 5. Loss aversion. The fear of losing is stronger than the joy of winning. Humans hate losing more than they love winning. That's loss aversion. Studies show that the pain of losing something is about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining it. This bias explains why people stay in unhappy jobs, bad relationships, or failed investments. because losing what they already have feels worse than the potential joy of something better. It also drives impulsive decisions during sales, investments, or negotiations. You cling to what's familiar because your brain interprets change as a threat. Marketers exploit this bias constantly with phrases like "don't miss out" or "last chance." They trigger your fear of loss. But here's the irony. In trying to avoid loss, you often lose bigger opportunities. To grow, you must learn to view loss not as failure, but as feedback. When you detach your identity from what you own, you begin making decisions from power, not fear. The Dunning-Kruger effect. The illusion of knowing more than you do. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a fascinating and humbling bias. It's when people with low knowledge overestimate their competence, while those with high knowledge underestimate theirs. In simple terms, the less you know, the more confident you feel. The more you learn, the more you realize how little you truly know. This bias explains why some people speak with absolute certainty about things they barely understand, and why experts often sound cautious or unsure. It's not that experts lack confidence. It's that they understand the complexity of reality. The Dunning-Kruger effect thrives in a world where loudness is mistaken for intelligence and confidence is mistaken for truth. To escape it, humility is essential. The smartest people are not those who think they know everything, but those who are constantly aware of how much more there is to learn. True wisdom begins with the words, "I might be wrong." 7. The endowment effect. You overvalue what you own. Have you ever noticed how you think your old phone, your car, or even your favorite mug is worth more than it really is? That's the endowment effect. Your brain's bias to assign extra value to things simply because they belong to you. Ownership changes perception. Once you have something, your identity becomes tied to it, and losing it feels personal. This bias explains why it's hard to declutter, sell your belongings, or walk away from a project you've invested time in, even if it's no longer working. Marketers understand this and use free trials or samples to trick your brain into ownership. Once you feel something is yours, you don't want to give it up. The endowment effect reveals how emotionally attached humans are to their possessions, experiences, and ideas. To make clear decisions, you must learn to separate emotional value from real value. Letting go doesn't always mean losing. Sometimes it means gaining freedom. The sunk cost fallacy, throwing good effort after bad. The sunk cost fallacy is one of the most common and destructive cognitive biases. It's when you continue investing time, money, or energy into something just because you've already invested so much, even when it's clearly not working. You tell yourself, "I can't quit now, I've come too far." That's your ego talking. Your brain hates admitting failure, so it convinces you to keep going, hoping to justify past effort. But this only traps you deeper in loss. The truth is, no amount of past investment changes the present reality. If a job, project, or relationship no longer serves you, holding on to it won't make it better. It will only drain more of your time and energy. The sunk cost fallacy keeps people stuck in cycles of regret and resistance. Real strength lies not in holding on, but in knowing when to let go. Sometimes quitting isn't weakness, it's wisdom. These 8 cognitive biases shape almost every decision you make. They filter what you see, twist how you think, and quietly control how you act. The most powerful thing you can do isn't to eliminate them. You can't, but to notice them. Awareness is your weapon. Once you recognize when your brain is tricking you, you regain control. Every great leader, investor, and thinker learns to question their first thought, test their assumptions, and see beyond emotion. The human mind is extraordinary, but it's also deeply flawed. Understanding your biases doesn't make you perfect, it makes you wiser. And wisdom, in the end, is what turns ordinary decisions into extraordinary outcomes.